The soul is the witness. This is a poem from my book, Psyche's Poetry, Beauty to Awaken the Soul. The soul is the witness, the post-exilic wonder that stands firm and unshaken among the far-strewn rubble. See the merry making she evinces under, for all who have created, the two have become one. Then wherever you may find yourself, whatever you have spoken, comes from a place of living, comes from a place of light. Ever merry wonder, understanding meanings, far beyond those earthbound when two have become one. Shining deep within you and shining all around you, the love that once was promised, the kingdom now has come. It's not only within you, but shining all around you. The spell, it has been broken. The two have become one. The veil is rent asunder. The gift is awe-filled wonder. When the old life has gone under, and two have become one. The two have become one. You have fulfilled your mission, understood the freedom when two have become one. And now what I'm going to do is going to talk about, expound upon the messages that I see in the poem. Now, this poetry is channeled, so I learn about the meanings and understand it. And my understanding evolves as time goes on and my consciousness shifts and I understand it maybe in a new way. So, as was typical with most poetry, my understanding may not necessarily be yours, but this is the way that I perceive it because I've had people ask me how I see what the poem is saying. So the soul is the witness. And if you've read, I think I did a video on this before, but I've also written about it in the biblical story of Lot, where she is the witness of the destruction. And in that process of witnessing the destruction, she becomes a pillar. And that is something that um, is a strong element, something that is able to withstand change, withstand chaos, withstand destruction. And so I really am sharing this poem now for obvious reasons because we're in the midst, in many ways personally, but also collectively, of this major change. And the world is in flux right now. And so the question is, how do we withstand this type of uncertainty and unknown? And that is by, and I feel like this poem really addresses this, establishing that inner sense of stability. It's a foundation that is unshakable. And so that foundation has to be in something that doesn't change. And most of us have been conditioned to put our foundation in the world, and everything that's in the world can change. And so, right now, I believe we're in the process of shifting, for those who haven't already done it, from our sense of stability being in the outer world to a sense of stability that is within us. So there's actually a process to be able to do this, to be able to cultivate this sense of inner stability. So the soul is the witness, which means the soul is the aspect of ourselves which witnesses, which doesn't get, which becomes that kind of pillar. So we're not, buffeted about, which is the ego, by everything that's happening around us and sometimes within us as well. So a post-exilic wonder means after the exile. So there's no longer this sense of being exiled, which we see repeatedly in Christianity. And that means that that period of being exiled is over. And that stands firm and unshaken. So the soul stands firm and unshaken among the far strewn rubble, right? So the rubble is indicative of the ego, which has crumbled. And so this isn't the idea of destruction of the ego or eradicating the ego. It's merely shifting identification from the ego, which is buffeted about by the winds of change, and establishing it in the soul, which isn't identified with the ego and the world of form. So, like when they say, Jesus says, I'm in the world, but not of the world, that's what they're talking about. It goes on to say, see the merry making she evinces under. The soul is often equated with the feminine. For all those, for all who have created, the two have become one. So this idea of duality and separation comes to an end. So for me, when the two become one, which I've kind of landed on in some of my studies for my doctorate, and also within my dreams, is the unification of spirit and soul. So soul being like the energetics. So when you see someone has passed away, the soul has left the body, which the soul is that animating presence. And so when you look at someone, if you've ever seen with someone who's passed away, it's like they aren't there. Like the body is there, doesn't really quite look like them anymore, but they are gone. And that they is that soul aspect of themselves, which moves on. So then for me, spirit is that ground, that stillness, that silence, the emptiness, that the soul and as our consciousness changes, we have this kind of, we can go through this phase of separation where it feels like they're two different things. And then eventually they come together and they unify. And there's this understanding that it's all the same thing. It's all part of the one. So that's at one level. At another level, there's this idea, even in physics, that everything is energy and that it's like a quantum soup. And so there really isn't any separation. And so that's also at another level what the meaning can be is that the idea of separation between things comes to an end. And there's this understanding where everything is one and everything is unified. So it's kind of a unitary consciousness. Goes on to say, then wherever you may find yourself, whatever you have spoken comes from a place of living, comes from a place of light. And so when we are able to see the deeper truth and live from that deeper truth, then whatever we're doing, whatever we're expressing, comes from a deeper place. It's not something that comes from the ego, from the mind, but it comes from something within that has a different quality to it. It has the quality of truth, it has a quality of love, of light, of being in alignment with that deeper truth. Ever merry wonder, understanding meanings far beyond those earthbound when two have become one. So that's very similar in that this sense that something comes from a deeper strata. So you could take something like an archetypal story, and those often come from those places of the deeper kind of truth. So something like The Wizard of Oz, which was published in 1900 and is still active today in our consciousness, that is something that comes from that place of deeper expression, something that really resonates with the large, which you've heard me talk about a lot, something that comes from that something that resonates with that collective, with the large aspect of the collective, is often coming from that deeper place, far beyond those earthbound, right? So something that it transcends the physical, something that comes from a deeper, like energetic place of truth, shining deep within you and shining all around you. The love that once was promised, the kingdom now has come. Again, referencing back to Christianity, then there is this idea that the kingdom is spread out before you. We just don't see it. And so that heaven on earth, all of those kinds of unitary, right? These unitary ways of seeing things is comes to an end once we understand the deeper truth and the two, the separation becomes a unitary perspective. So that means that you're seeing, then you finally see the truth of what is here before us. and how things work, right? Because we have been conditioned to have this dualistic perspective of good and bad, right and wrong. And as you step into this place, it's beyond judgment, and it's beyond that perception of the extremes. It's not only within you, but shining all around you. The spell, it has been broken. The two have become one. Because basically, it's just conditioning. Basically, we've been conditioned to see and believe things that don't resonate with the deeper truth. The veil is rent asunder, the gift is off filled wonder, when the old life has gone under and two have become one. So the old life, in a sense, has been seen differently. And when the ego is identified with the story of me, then that is what is that goes away, because the understanding is that the soul is not the story. The ego is identified with the story. So that story, once that story goes away and you identify with the soul, then that story kind of ends up being something that is seen as not like a tangible real thing, which up until the point that you kind of realize this, there's a really strong identification with it. And when the veil is rent asunder, that's again a reference to Christianity. When Jesus is on the cross, it's the vertical element, which is the above and the below, and the horizontal element, which is the inside and the outside. And those, see, again, that's that duality, and they become one. And so that's what that symbolizes, is the end of ego, in the sense of, again, identification with ego. Not that the ego is destroyed, but that the ego is just not identified with the soul. Once the soul's identified with, then the understanding is that when the veil is rent asunder, the holy of holies are revealed, and so the deeper truth. The two have become one. You have fulfilled your mission, understood the freedom when two have become one. So that's kind of a cool poem, especially about these times we're living in and about where we're going, and to a degree how to get there. This is what's happening, is this shift in consciousness and this evolution of humanity. So I hope you enjoyed that. Psyche's poetry, beauty to awaken the soul. Have a good day.